How are we doing, Jay? You all right?
Good evening, gents. How are we all?
Very well, thank you.
So, tell us a little bit about how this all started and came about? Because obviously, the last 2 years would have been incredibly busy for you.
Yeah, and that it goes back to me being the idiot. So I had a pub that we gave the keys back 3 weeks before, before the first lockdown, and one of the best nights of the week was our Thursday night quiz night. So when it was announced that all the pubs were going to shut, I said, right, I'll tell you what, I just went onto my own social media on Facebook and said, look, I'm thinking of doing a quiz on Thursday night because none of us can do anything. Just let me know if you're interested, kind of thing. And left it at that and didn't even think about it. And the intention was to entertain sort of, 40 people around here who used to come to my quizzes, and didn't realize that it was a public event rather than this is only on your Facebook. This is actually open to the world. And by the Thursday night that I did that first quiz, we had over 500,000 people interested in the event. And I've always sort of, I wonder how these weird things go viral. How can people, you read them in the newspaper, 20,000 people turned up at a house party because of an event on Facebook. And lo and behold, I was stuck in the eye of the storm of it all. And it was just like, for 4 days from that Monday where it just blew up out of nowhere to the Thursday night of that first quiz, I was talking to various journalists, media, people messaging me, how's this going to work? And I was just completely and utterly overwhelmed with it. I just didn't know what on earth I was going to do until I basically went into my little shell and went, I'll do what I always do. 50 questions, sit there, ask them. And if people like it, they do. If they don't, they don't. And we'll see how it went. And, went on to break the Guinness World Record for most people watching a live streamed quiz, which was 182,000.
Wow. That's amazing.
That were one Thursday night. We had, in fact, 2 years ago today, I was just talking to Alex a little while ago. 2 years ago tonight, we had Stephen Fry co-hosted the quiz. So he was on with me. That was brilliant. He, just sort of recorded 2 rounds, and I'd sort of, I'm all of a sudden this complete and utter nobody is now sharing a 50-question quiz with Stephen Fry. But the more important thing out of it all, the quizzes have been fun, but it's the charity aspect that we've had of it. And over the last 2 years, we've raised over £1.3 million for various charities, including Diana Award.
Amazing.
And it's just, I mean, that for me was, everyone says to me, oh, what's your proudest moment? The awards and people and what have you. And, now you've got this bit of a presence. And I went, no, I said, I've helped various charities around the country at a time that probably wouldn't have been able to rely on any help, and we've put £1.3 million in their pockets. So it's been overwhelming, and that's why I'm grateful. You had Alex on earlier, Alex Holmes, and he's been by my side pretty much since week 2, and he is just such an inspirational person. And there have been times where I have gone, I can't do this anymore. I can't, you've got social media trolls, as you expect. You suddenly find yourself with a presence online, and everyone starts, and there were times where I just wanted to throw the towel in completely and go, I can't do this. I don't want to do this. And he would always remind me that for every, 2 or 3 nasty comments you get in, there's 1,000 other comments that you'll get in that, absolutely love what you do. And so, it's been a very brilliant 2 years, but it's been a very hard 2 years at the same time. And trying to balance that out with, mental health, and also I exposed myself to, my past, very early on when I supported a charity. And a lot of people would have been like, why are you supporting a homeless charity in London? So I then had to explain, what my reasons were for it. And I had friends of mine around here in Darwin who messaged me and went, we never knew this about you. And I said, well, it was 11 years ago. Why do I need to tell you that I was street homeless in London for 2 years? It defines me, but it's not something I, constantly refer to. And a lot of people, because it's that stigmatism. I know you're just talking about it previously about it, and there's a lot of stigmatism around homelessness, and how homeless people are perceived. But there were people like myself who were the complete definition of a homeless person. I was a person without a home. Simple as that. I didn't have a drink problem or a drug problem or anything like that. I just had nowhere to live, and that was me. So I've exposed myself to a lot of things over the last 2 years, but you know, I'm still here. I'm still smiling. I get to talk to you fine people on a Saturday evening, where by now I'd probably be sat on the Xbox playing some stupid game or writing more quiz questions. So, you know, I get to come and chat to you fine gentlemen on a Saturday night. So,
oh mate, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that with us as well. And you know, obviously we didn't plan on you telling us about that story, but thank you so much that you did. And I suppose that now that you brought it up, if you wouldn't mind, you just said about sort of destigmatizing homelessness, and you just said about the reasons why you ended up being homeless or without a home weren't the traditional stereotypical reasons that people think. Do you mind, just for anyone listening, just that you brought it up now, just giving us a little bit more context?
Yeah, well,
thank you so much for raising
no, it's one of the reasons why I wanted to, you know, come and join you guys this evening, because, you know, when I was street homeless back end of the 2000s, mental health is not something that I have ever, you know, I mean, now, but, you know, growing up, I turned 40 at the beginning of April, and mental health is not something that's ever really been in my lifetime, if that makes any kind of sense. It's never, you know, you always had those stereotypical, oh, you know, you're depressed. Yeah, it's just an excuse kind of thing. It's not anything, you know, you didn't get any of that support. So I went through a very, very bad relationship breakdown, sort of mid 2000s, and I had moved up to the Northeast. Against a lot of people's better judgment, saying it was never going to be right, which, yeah, okay, most of them turned out to be right. So I returned to London, and I bounced around from job to job, you know, bounced around from friend's sofa to friend's sofa because I didn't have anywhere to live. And the problem is when you go through relationship breakups and, you know, you don't really have the right support or the right people or friends or what have you around you, you know, you just hit rock bottom. And that's what I did. I didn't trust anyone. You know, people had the best intentions, but I didn't trust it. So eventually my brain went, enough's enough. Forget everyone around you. Let's just go. So I packed up a bag without thinking and walked out into the London nighttime. And for a couple of weeks, I slept on, you know, sort of night buses and stuff like that, not really having a plan. Very early on, I tried, you know, unsuccessfully tried to take my own life very early on, because I'd not only hit rock bottom in my eyes, I'd gone through the rock and carried on going, and, you know, never knew when it was going to end. So, but that was unsuccessful. To the point that I thought, right, well, I've got two options here. I can either let this take hold of me and I will leave this earth and no one probably would be any the wiser, or I can find a way to fight it and just take this as my new life. And that's where I then made myself a home on Victoria Embankment, not far from the London Eye, an embankment tube station, which I called number 3 Riverside View, Victoria Embankment, London, because I wanted to humanize it as my house. Which, you know, it has now become a bit of a symbol. It's actually now got a plaque on the bench dedicated to me, and also details about the homeless charity and Samaritans, which happened in December. I'm very grateful to the guys who made that happen. But that was my home for 2 years. And I didn't know anything about homeless shelters, day centers, people out there that could help. You constantly saw homeless people around, and in my eyes, well, they're out there, so no one's getting any help. And that's what I did. I just existed day to day. I used to wander the streets for 18 hours a day, just looking to find loose change and stuff like that, because I didn't do anything illegal. I didn't sit busking or begging, or I couldn't busk anyway. I can't sing to save my life. I can't play any musical instruments. So people would be paying me to shut up rather than actually singing. Get off, go away. So, you know, I didn't sit begging or anything. I wanted to do something. And I used to walk all around London. You know, I had a few different walking routes. I used to start at the Embankment. I'd walk all the way out to Heathrow and then back again. And I'd walk all the way out, sometimes all the way out to Romford and back again. And then eventually, after a couple of years, the homeless charity discovered me and found me where I was sleeping, left a card. And they took, you know, said, come and see us. And I thought, oh, here we go. Someone's offering help. Still not really in the right, you know, sort of, because I was basically a shell of a person. You know, personalities are made by talking to people and having conversations and having friends. You know, that's when you develop who you are. So I walked in that door as a shell of a person, but still with that you know, I don't trust people, you know, what's in it for you kind of thing. And there was nothing in it for them. They just wanted to help, and they did through a process of, you know, various things. But because I walked in the door without any issues, I was a homeless person. I had effectively chosen to be in that situation. It took them 6 months, a further 6 months to, you know, help me get away from there into temporary accommodation. But they rebuilt me. They made me the person that I am today. They helped with my confidence. They helped with, you know, restoring me into society, if you like. But that, you know, while I was in there, I saw so many different people from so many different walks of life, you know, from every nation, country, color, creed, whatever it might be. And when you're in that situation as a homeless person, there's no, in that sort of community, there's no stigmatism. It's not, you know, oh, you're from this country, or you're from that background, or you're from here. Everyone was together. Everyone was a community, and everyone was out there to try and support each other. And the, you know, the day centers and the homeless charities are all there. They don't care who you are. They just want to help you. They just want to get you, you know, up and running and get you into, you know, back into society. And I'm eternally grateful, because I'm sat here tonight talking to you, you know, sort of 12, 13 years later, after going through that, with a wife who is out drinking somewhere tonight. I don't actually know where she's gone. And a 5-year-old in bed. And I'm sat here with, you know, a very successful quiz that's raised a lot of money for charities, including Connection at St. Martin's, and let's say for Diana Award as well. And, you know, without them, I wouldn't be here. But those 2 years, although I haven't spoken about it, you know, other than these last couple of years, I've not really spoken about it openly with people. I have done more so over the last couple of years. That made me who I am, because those 2 years have made me more grateful for life. You know, if I can survive for 2 years without having any money, I'm pretty much surviving on a diet of custard creams and chocolates with rolls, which back in the late 2000s, you could pick up a packet of custard creams for 15p. It was brilliant. But, you know, if I can survive on that, I can survive through anything. It doesn't make me superhuman, but it means that, you know, I can get through life without worrying. And I appreciate everything a lot more. And I appreciate the people around me. And I appreciate the people when they give me, like, you know, like say Alex has been by my side since, you know, week 2, when you didn't know him from Adam, and he just reached out and said, I'd like to offer some help. And he's been with me ever since. You know, and he's been a great comfort and support, especially in those early days. And it's made me a lot more grateful for people, which is then means I can talk more about mental health and how, you know, how we really do need to get behind people and stop stigmatizing it all. You know, stop putting labels on it. You know, just actually, for me, the biggest thing anyone can ever do is just go and ask someone if they're okay. Don't go off to the pub and talk to your mates and go, oh, have you heard about Steve? Is he all right? You know, oh, have you? Go and ask him. You know, and especially in men as well, we're rubbish at doing it. We're rubbish at, you know, when was the last time, you know, you might have spoken to a friend and gone, oh, I've not spoken to him for a couple of weeks. Let's make sure they're all right. Drop them a text and say, are you okay? And they'll actually probably appreciate it, because it shows that someone's reaching out. And that's the big thing we need to, you know, that's the message we need to get across to people, is just ask. You're all right. You're okay.
Mate, well done. Massive, well, a massive thank you. A massive well done. A massive well done to Alex as well. Alex has just put a emoji up in the chat. Absolutely incredible from both of you. And I'd love to actually just discuss a couple other things. So I can't remember what it was. It must have been a while ago. It must have been about 10 years ago or something. My mum sat me down with some mini kind of short, it was either on BBC or the Telegraph or something like that, and they'd done a wee mini short doc on homelessness. And I remember just being a stupid young lad, and I just wasn't interested. And she was like, "You need to like take an interest in this." And I was like, "Oh no, it's probably like their own fault." It's typical, just someone just didn't want to understand, didn't want to even begin to understand. Very privileged in my upbringing, so if anyone didn't have an upbringing like that, then surely that's their own fault, right? And with whatever information I was misled to believe. What other stories did you hear from people who found themselves in the same position as you, and what sort of range of reasons can lead to people finding themselves in that position? Because it's so different to what a lot of people think, isn't it?
Yeah, well, this is one of my dreams, that now I've been doing this for the last 2 years. I want to try and put a proper homeless documentary together. I know there's a lot out there, you know, that people have done, but 9 times out of 10, they haven't been done by someone who actually has lived through it. And has spoken to people, and that's one of the things I really want to do, over the next sort of 12, 18 months, because, I mean, where do I start? I don't like the line where people say you're 1 or 2 wages away from ending up on the streets, because that's not the case. It's always a combination of things. So for me, it was a relationship breakdown, coming back to London, and mental health took me there. But I remember one of my good friends that I made, and I'm still in touch today. He was in the military. And he was a chef in the military. He had a performing arts background. He came out of the military. There was no real support for him, and he spiraled to the point that, again, he had no support network around him and nowhere to turn to, so ended up living on the streets. There are people who, as you would expect, there are people who have issues with, drunk or drink, etc. Those are out there. But if you strip those things away, they're human beings, and they're actual incredible human beings who have lived life in various different ways. There was some very vulnerable females that we all looked out for. Once I'd started going to Connection St. Martin's, you get talking to people, and we'd always keep our eyes out. I mean, I slept away from a lot of the homeless community in Westminster, but you'd always keep your eyes out for people and make sure they're all safe. There was a couple of young people as well, who'd come from broken homes, run away from home. I remember, can't remember his name, but there was a 15-year-old boy, because he used to come and play football with us on a Friday that the day centre put on for us to go and do, to keep us all fit. And he was 15 years old, and broken home, in and out of various places, and ran away, because he felt he would be better out on the streets. So, there is literally every single walk of life out there. Everyone would have a different story to tell. But it's one of the things that people do ask is, what do I do? All right, I'm walking through my local shopping centre and I see somebody who's homeless. What should I do? Should I go and buy him a sandwich? Should I give him a fiver? What's the best way to do? I said, just go and talk to them. Is your first port of call. Just go and actually just say, hi, I don't know what to do. Are you okay? Is there anything you need? And then after that, there's a couple of places which you can go online and Google them, that you can register where you've seen that homeless person. So that then gets passed on to the local homeless charities, and then they can go with the actual resources and go and help them and go and talk to them. And that's the best thing anyone can do, is actually just be nice and go and talk to them, and just see.
Yeah, thanks for saying that, because I think a lot of people do want to do the right thing and want to help in some way. But then again, similar to this whole mental health conversation we're having, there's a lot of misinformation, isn't there? There's a lot of people saying, "No, I don't want to offend someone," or in that type of thing. So I think that's really important that you've touched on that. I'd like to, again, I'm sorry, I'm just incredibly curious about it. When you said about what actually obviously led to you making that final decision, it was obviously a breakdown in trust in lots of different areas, which then led to you making that decision, and then based on a lot of different factors, because of, like you said, the breakdown in the relationship. But actually, when I started to do a little bit of research into it, breakdowns in relationship in adults is a big cause for people ending up living on the streets. And I feel as if just not a lot of people know that. Like, I was surprised when I found that out. And I think then a lot of it comes down to how little we talk. We've not even actually touched about it today yet, but about relationships, and about what toxic places relationships can be, how much game playing is involved. Every single person in the world almost will potentially go through some sort of failed relationship, whether it is with a partner, or whether it's with a friend, or with a parent, or whatever it is. But there's no education really out there on this, or minimal education about how you deal with this. And also, because of that, especially partners, it's became just so normalized that it happens. Right, you go through it, just like what you just deal with it. Well, like how? Like failed relationship, but hardly any of them actually end, on great terms. It's just such a different.
Sorry, train going past. Sorry.
Obviously, that kind of led to this happening for you. So is that something that you're passionate about as well?
Yeah, because the problem you have with relationship breakdowns is the first port of call that you naturally go to is your friendship circle. Now, if you've been with someone for quite a long time, chances are that friendship circle is going to be made up of a lot of mutual friends. So then what that instantly is going to do is you're then going to ask all of your friends to start taking sides. It doesn't matter whether they want to or not, they're going to naturally take sides. So it's not just then the relationship that becomes toxic, it's the friendships that become toxic, because all of a sudden you might have, you know, a nice mutual couple that you'd always go for dinner on a Friday night. And now you're asking them to pick who they're now going to see, you know, going forward. And that then breaks up those safety nets and those, you know, those circles that you've got, your comfort, you know, they're your routine. They're all the things that you do. And then it just starts to spiral from there. You know, family take the same, you know, take the size. I mean, we've, you know, and I'm not sure if they're listening at the moment, but it's not toxic, thankfully, at the moment. But, you know, in the family, we've got someone going through a divorce at the moment, and we're trying to support both sides and be friendly to both sides and make sure that everyone's happy and everyone's looked after. But it's not always the case. And it's in the same way that there's no guidebook to, and I've used this line a few times, but you know, the idiot's guide to being homeless. Congratulations, you are homeless. Here's what you do on day one. There isn't for a relationship breakup. Every single one will be different, but there has to be a way that you can support and find, you know, there should be not a guidebook, but the signs to look out for, because relationships don't just break up overnight. There's a lead up to it, and that's where I think a lot of relationship breakups can be made easier if people can recognize the signs. You know, is it cheating? Right. So the other partner, you know, you start as a friendship group or a circle, right? You can see someone starting to cheat. So you need to get in there and help and make it easier. Because you're right. No, you know, breakups are never great. That's the whole point, you know, break up. You know, it's not it's not like we're splitting on mutual terms. It's not a football term, you know, where the manager, even when they do that in football terms, oh, you know, manager's leaving on mutual terms. No, he's not. He's been given the boot. You're just dressing it up to make it look, you know, and, you know, you wouldn't see that in the paper. Oh, you know, Mr. and Mrs. X have decided to go their separate way on mutual terms. But yeah, it's always looking for those signs, and again, asking for help and making sure. I think that's always the thing that we're very scared of doing, especially as a nation. I don't think we like asking for help. And if more of us actually ask for help, I think we'd probably all be in a lot better place, you know, even in relationships.
When we've obviously spoken about some like the stereotypes when it comes around people potentially becoming homeless. What I think seems to be great. I may just be putting two and two together here, but what I'm gathering, which I think is amazing as well, is that although you may have faced some prejudice when you were out in the street, but actually what ended up happening to you was some absolutely incredible experiences thanks to this charity as well, and thanks to some of the people that you've met. Would that be right in saying?
Oh yeah, I mean, it sounds awful to say, but I had some of the best times on the streets and learned a lot about myself. And, you know, especially living in London and being born and bred London, I learned more about London in 2 years walking around than I ever did in the, you know, previous years of being a Londoner. But then I had some of the worst times. I mean, I got punched in the face randomly walking down Oxford Street because some guy was in my, you know, I'd never tried to make myself look homeless. I tried to blend in, but you know, if you knew what to look for, you'd know I was a homeless person. And just walking down and got punched in the face just for computer. But what could I do about it? I couldn't exactly go to a police officer and go, that man's just punched me in the face. Oh, what's your address? I've got no fixed abode. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, go and deal with it yourself, kind of thing. I had it with a couple of police officers, you know, themselves. I had the traditional good cop, bad cop. You know, good cops there going, look, there's £1, you know, go and get yourself a coffee. And then the bad cop's like, you know, well, you're not allowed to be in here, kind of thing, you know, get out of here or I'll start taking your details. You know, but then I took myself and how do I explain this? I took myself on holiday, whereby one of the things I used to do growing up was go to air shows, specifically like Southend Air Show and stuff like that. And I realized that Eastbourne Air Show was coming. And to give myself, you know, sort of a reason to being and doing something, I walked from London to Eastbourne. Took me 4 days, slept rough in Eastbourne, watched the air show, came back home, and went back to my bench. I then, you know, a few weeks, you know, I got woken up by, you know, the polar opposite is I got woken up by German tourists because I'd overslept. I always tried to leave at 7 o'clock in the morning. One day I was obviously more exhausted than I realized, all tucked up in my sleeping bag. and I got woken up by rocks being thrown at me on my bench by a load of German tourists who were sat there waiting for the riverboat. So, you know, it was the best of times, but the worst of times. And I say that's what's built me. And that's why, you know, I don't want to be like the German tourists. I want to be like the person who, you know, appreciates everyone around me and, you know, takes everyone, you know, for the person they are rather than, you know, the situation they're in or what they look like or who they are or, you know, what their background or personality is. I'd rather take them as the person that they actually are.
I saw an advert on TV literally just a couple of days ago, and I should know which bank it is. So I'm annoyed at myself for not remembering because the advert stuck with me, and it was about breaking the cycle, the homelessness cycle. Because if you're homeless, you don't have a registered address. If you don't have a registered address, you can't get a bank account.
Is it nationwide?
Yeah, it might be nationwide. If you can't get a bank account, you can't get a job.
Yeah.
But which is amazing that a bank is obviously wanting to come and do something about this. How important is it to try and break this cycle? And what support actually? Because I'm a little bit naive to this. I'll be totally upfront and honest. What sort of support is out there?
Yeah, well, that was one of the first things when I went to Connection at St Martin's. So they're a homeless charity based in Westminster, right off of Trafalgar Square in St Martin in the Fields. You'll have probably walked past it, walking through London, going up to, you know, a place like Leicester Square. They're in anonymous buildings, but there are thousands of homeless charities out there. There's the big nationwide ones like Shelter, who I supported last week, Crisis, to name just a couple of them. But then there are, you know, there's thousands of regional ones that are in, you know, the cities around the UK. But that's one of the first things they did with me. I went in for an assessment, you know, tell us a bit about you, where you've come from, who you are, what you are. But then they set me up with a benefits advisor. And the first thing he did was, right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get you set up with a crisis loan. Now, this is not here's some free money. This is a loan that you will pay back, which I did. And it just puts some money in your pocket to start you on this process so that you feel human again. You know, you've got a wallet that's got, you know, a £10 note. Oh my word, this is great. And then they allowed me to use the day centre's address as a care of address, which then gives you the bank account, that gives you the details. They then set me up to job seekers allowance, and they said, you know, right, you are on the streets, but you've got a temporary care of address, and we will help you break out of that cycle. They wanted, I mean, this, you know, place in particular, they were setting me up with work experience. So they, you know, they said, what do you really want to do? And at the time I wanted to be a radio producer because radio had played a massive part in those 2 years, because I always used to listen to my little digital radio, you know, so when you could get 100 batteries for £1. It was brilliant. You can't get them for that these days. But so I always used to listen to radio. I used to listen to Chris Moyles when he was on Radio 1 Breakfast, and that would be like my friends, because of that format, similar to what you're doing here, you know, that would get me going in the morning. I was listening to my friends talking rather than, you know, them talking to 8-9 million people. They were talking to me. But those are the places that will help break the cycle. You know, they can get you into places like temporary accommodation, which they did with me. It took them 6 months, but then I had a roof over my head. I had the way I described the first place I got moved into is like the easy hotels, where it was like a bed, a shower, a toilet, no windows, but it was a room. You know, I was indoors. I was, you know, I had actual, you know, 4 walls and a ceiling. Roof was the floor was a bit ropey, but you know, at least I was indoors. And then they moved me from there. They carried on working, and then I moved into a house share, and then from then on, you know, carried on going. Those places will help break the cycle. And the best thing anyone can do, if you see someone out there, it's called StreetLink. If anyone wants to Google it, if you see someone out on the streets, go onto StreetLink, give them the details of who they are, where you've seen them, and they'll get someone to go out there and help them, and then they can help them break the cycle.
Honestly, such an inspiring story. And thank you so much for sharing it with us. And it's, I think it's great for us to know that you are feeling so much more comfortable talking about this now. Because this is obviously, like you said, this is quite recent, you talking about this now. How sorry, I was just always going to say that. How important has it been for you to finally talk about this? It must be just so much more empowering, you know, the benefit that you're having. And also, sorry, what was the not to suggest there's any bad reason for you not sharing it before, absolutely not at all. But what were the reasons out of curiosity? Was it more just kind of like you weren't ready, or you thought don't know if this can definitely help anyone yet?
No, for me, and especially like, I've lived in Darwin now for 7 years. For me, I didn't want people to change their opinion of me because of those stigmatisms that are around it. So if I felt that in my head, if I turned around and said, hey guys, I was street homeless for 2 years, I didn't want people to flip and go, all right, nice being friends for a year, don't want to talk to you now. But what I realized quite quickly with what happened with the quiz at the start of the pandemic, I suddenly realized that I actually had, I mean, to be honest, I hate the limelight. I really don't like, I'm getting more comfortable with it now, talking about myself and history and what have you. But if someone messages us and the quiz and says, can you write something about me? I usually go, Alex, can you write something about me? Because I don't even know where to start. I wouldn't put it into words. But when I realized that people were actually listening to what I was saying and they were, taking note of what I was saying, I suddenly realized that I felt a lot more comfortable being open and being honest about where I've come from and what my background was. And it actually meant that it was going to have an impact on people. And I know it has done. I know people who, are now supporting Diana Award with the anti-bullying. We talked about that very, very openly on the quiz, to the point that even my mother-in-law has got, my wife's niece, it's school now involved in it. And my little in school is going to hopefully get involved in it. And when you've got a platform, in the same way that you guys are doing incredible things around, mental health and getting people opening up and talking, I also had that platform that I could talk about these kind of issues. And I always work on the theory, if I can change one person's mind and one person's perception, I've done my job. That's what I need to do. I know it's changed a lot more people, but that's what we should be using these platforms for. People say, oh, you're a celebrity. I say, I'm not. I don't feel like I am. I'm not an influencer. I'm not a celebrity. I'm an idiot who sits and reads quiz questions twice a week. But I have got the opportunity and hopefully the chance to change people's lives who might be out there and get them, like I say, break that cycle and get them indoors.
So inspiring. Really, really inspiring.
What how important is it for you to, I know it's such like you're talking about it so normally now, to remember these, I don't know whether calling them roots is the right term here. I remember I saw there was a story about a man in America who does charity work, founded his own charity, real sort of like philanthropist, and he had lived on the street. And one of his main things that he would say, he's got now a lovely house, he's got a bed, and he still feels as if he couldn't sleep in the bed. He would often sleep on the couch because I don't know how intentional it was. I don't know whether I got that from it, but it was definitely something to never become complacent.
Yeah, I've learned so many lessons from, because I wasn't a complete wild child in my early 20s, but I more enjoyed sitting in a pub at a karaoke night drinking than being at home, in my early 20s. Now I like the fact that I've got a house and I've got my own home comforts. I'm not one to be falling out of nightclubs at 5 o'clock in the morning. Don't get me wrong, I like a drink and I'll go out and enjoy myself, but I'd rather go to a pub quiz than fall out of a pub at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. But yeah, there's little things like I tend to try and have to sleep with the window open a little bit to have that breeze coming through, because for 2 years I was used to having a breeze coming through my sleeping bag. But yeah, I don't take anything for granted, and I probably appreciate people a hell of a lot more than I used to. And if someone offers help, if I actually ask for it, I still don't ask for help. I still don't, I've not learned that lesson. But if people do offer help, I do, sort of try to take it now.
Right, mate, good for you. Good for you. Well done. What would you like to see then? So you mentioned the documentary, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, I would really love to see that, mate. I think, like you said, the perspective that you'd be able to put on it from someone that's actually been homeless will be so much more different than someone that is just maybe coming in and seeing something for a couple of weeks or a month or so and spending a bit of time there. But for the length of time that you were homeless for and being able to put your own spin, your own perspective, literally through your eyes, I think would be so much more powerful than anything else that's out there. So I would really, really love to see that come to fruition at some point.
Fingers crossed if a door opens at some point and someone goes, yeah, go on in, you come, we'll have a chat. But yeah, that for me is something, because I think, with the platform that I've done at the moment, it's helped a little bit, but something like that would actually, hopefully change a lot more people's perception. And it doesn't have to just, the homeless side of it. There is also other aspects that go with the mental health, the alcoholism, the drugism, those kind of things do then, all fall into that big category that could hopefully change a few people's perceptions. Fingers crossed. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, I'll be disappointed it doesn't happen. But I do feel it can change a few people if someone wants to take it on at some point. You never know.
No, definitely 100%. But this has been my favorite pub quiz ever. I'm very conscious of your time. So we will be looking to get some of these answers, but because we have spoken about it and because obviously that this platform is available for you, is there anything else that based on what we've discussed, that you would have liked to cover or liked to discuss tonight? Because I know you said you came in with the intention of wanting to be able to talk about this tonight.
No, do you know what I mean? This is why when the sort of email came through, would you mind, Diana Reward and you guys getting together? I said, yeah, I'm more than happy. And the thing is, I'm a weird person that I don't like talking, and then all of a sudden you get me talking about something, and I'll sit and talk to you guys until midnight until you've got your next person coming on, if I could. But for me, if people are watching tonight, if they take anything away from me talking, is homeless people are. There's a different story for every single person out there. So just go, if you don't know what to do, go and actually just go and ask them if they're okay. And if you've got time, sit with them and talk to them, because that's the thing I didn't get for 2 years. As I said before, I had my radio in my ears listening to Chris Moyles in the morning or whatever sport it might have been, Formula One and football for me kind of thing. But outside of that, the only conversations I used to get was random lost tourists, which I must admit I was guilty of having my own little chuckle in my head with one where we were in Leicester Square, and it's like, hey, can you tell us the directions to Leicester Square? And I'm like, yeah, I can, but I'm going to really take the piss out of you here. Right, so turn left, go to Piccadilly Circus train station, which is, it's just that way. Go one stop, that'll bring you to Leicester Square station. And walk out, and effectively they were back where we started. But it was just my little kick that I got out of it. I thought it's not, they're on holiday. It's not going to affect them too much, and they get to go on the underground for a bit. And then the other one that stuck in my mind was, I remember they were taking the Christmas lights down on Oxford Street. And there were two girls, can't have been more than about 18, 19 years old, had clearly been out for a night out, and they were sat at a bus stop that was closed. And I could see them constantly thinking, as I was walking towards them, where's this bus? Why isn't there a bus? So I just went up and just said, you girls waiting for a bus? And I'm like, yeah. I was like, you won't get a bus from here tonight. They're taking down the lights. Oh, great. Where do we go? I said, right, well, it'll be down this way, because I've, having been around all the diversions and stuff, I knew where to go. I said, it'll be down here. I said, I'm walking in that direction. You've two choices. You can either follow me or, walk and have a chat if you want. And they were like, okay. So we just, wandered down, and all I did was just ask, where they'd been for the night out. Did they have fun? Was it good? Didn't talk about me, just talked to them. And then made sure they got to the right bus stop and away they went. But outside of that, I didn't really have many conversations, random, good cop, bad cops. That's the one thing, if you see someone out there, just go and ask them if they're okay and just have a conversation with them. They'll probably appreciate that more than you giving them, 50p or a sandwich.
Wow, that's incredible. And I think it's just so amazing. And thank you for sharing your story with us and taking the time to talk through that and give us that insight and perspective into what it feels like for someone in that situation, but putting your own personal touch on it as well. I thought that was so powerful. Danny, what did you think of that?
And I've just been sat here in awe the whole time pretty much. It's actually just hit me how little I've contributed to this conversation. But I've done that thing where I've been a passenger again for so long, because I'm just sat here captivated by the whole thing. And it's sometimes easy to fall into the trap of just sitting and listening when the conversation's so impactful and so powerful. Then I'm like, oh, the conversation's wrapping up now. I should probably say something. but no, I mean, on behalf of like the lads here and from myself, it's so powerful because it's hearing it from someone who's lived it and who has that experience. That we all have these perceptions and presumptions, and which have potentially been influenced by stigmatization, like we touched on earlier. A lot of it isn't even accurate. And then to hear someone like yourself come on and speak so candidly about your experience just really contextualizes it and puts some things into perspective. And, you know, there's some home truths there that kind of make you think, oh, like maybe just conversations are better than a sandwich or a couple of quid, like you just said then. I'd never considered that before. And some of the things that have been spoken about this conversation were really like, oh, wow, like I'm going to act differently now because of this conversation. And it sounds so simple, but that is actually such a really powerful thing to say.
Definitely.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I'm in the exact same position as well. So I want to say a massive thank you. And I think everyone else will be in agreement as well. We've got another comment there. Danny, do you want to bring it up?
Yeah.
And then let's see who's
Callum.
Who's performed worse. Let's see this. There used to be a homeless guy sat outside the Sainsbury's in Perth. I'd have a wee chat with him every time I saw him. We'd always offer him something, sometimes a few cigarettes, sometimes a coffee sandwich, but you always said it was a conversation. Appreciate him. Yeah, I think it's amazing because I think, Callum, what you said, it's just taking the time to have any form of connection with this person. And exactly what you said, it would just been that attention and then communication and then just that some sort of that connection that's the most important thing.
Yeah, it's so easy just to go in your wallet and go, right, there's a couple of quid. But to know that someone, for me back then, to know that someone has actually would have taken the time to sit next to me while they were on my bench and just go, how's your day been? Well, I've been walking for 16 hours around London and I found £1. But to have that, have that connection with someone just for a few minutes would have meant the absolute world to me. So, that's why I know that there'll be people who are out there in that position at the moment that would appreciate it.
No, honestly, thank you so much. It's made me think about a whole lot of different things as well. And I think what Danny said there was absolutely perfect, that this is what you've done now is inspired positive change in everyone, no matter what it is. Maybe if it's just a very small change, maybe if, like Danny said, it's just making them starting to think about things differently now. That's going to be the catalyst for more change. So honestly, thank you so much. An incredible story and so inspiring. And it makes everything that obviously what you've done over the last couple of years is incredible anyway, but I know what a different meaning that has now. So honestly, thank you for that.
No, my pleasure. And before we get into the answers, thank you for what you guys are doing as well. Not just tonight, but over the podcast and everything, because you are making a positive change in other people in terms of mental health and stuff. So for what you three are doing, please, thank you very much. Don't stop. Keep doing it.
It's fun, Jay. Thank you so much for everything. Hopefully, there's everyone listening has enjoyed this as well. If anyone else would like to take part in anything that you do, or even just find out a little bit more about the virtual pub quiz, what can they do?
Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I've pulled my earphones out. Jay's Virtual Pub Quiz on Twitter. Jay's Virtual Pub Quiz on Facebook. The Virtual Pub Q1 on Twitter. Just search Jay's Virtual Pub Quiz, whichever social media you're on, you'll find us somehow. Or listen Zoe Ball's Breakfast Show on a Thursday morning. I do 5 questions with those guys on a Thursday morning. Or YouTube every Thursday and Saturday night. There you go. Alex is on the ball. He's putting the links in your chat as we speak. But yeah, Jay's Virtual Pub Quiz on YouTube. We're there every Thursday, every Saturday night live. 50 questions. We always have some kind of charity focus. So like I say, last Thursday was Shelter. This next few weeks we're back to supporting Connection at St Martin's, because I'm running the London Marathon again this year for Connection at St Martin's, because for 2 reasons. One, I get to support them, but it also, the route comes past the bench, that I slept on in the last mile and a half. So that was quite fun last year. Well, it wasn't fun because I got injured at mile 17. So whereas I was on for sort of 4.5 to 5 hours, ended up being 8 hours and 8 minutes, dragging my sort of broken leg kind of thing behind me to get across the line. It wasn't broken. I just twisted my knee and felt like I'd fallen over. But I had unfinished business. So I'm doing it again this year for him again because I want to try and get a good time on the board.
It's a lot of unfinished business.
Yeah, this is the problem. I seem to have these really great ideas, start stuff, and then go, oh, that didn't work. And then I've got a long list of things I need to do. But yeah, so yeah, Jay's Virtual Pub Quiz on YouTube, and come and find us. Come and have some fun with us on an evening.
Oh, brilliant. Nice we comment that in. Jay, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thanks for bringing a lot of fun and energy and some really important topics to the 9:45 shift. So thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Thank you
so much.
Cheers, Jay. Cheers, guys.
Jay, take care. And thanks, Alex, for the support as well.
Yeah, cheers, Alex. Appreciate it.